Hello again and welcome back to our course on Project 2019. In this section and the next section or two, we're going to take a look at views in Project 2019. You've already seen a few different views such as Gantt Chart View already. We're going to look at quite a few others in the next couple of sections. But I'm also going to introduce you to some general aspects of views that will help you as your knowledge and use of Project 2019 develops. Now, in a little bit of a break from tradition, we're going to look at the exercise, the Bathroom Refit Exercise version 04B. And this is my answer to exercise 4 during this section. And one of the reasons for doing that is I want to explain a couple of things about my solution to exercise 4. Hopefully your solution to exercise 4 will have been pretty similar to mine, but I'm going to show you one or two tools that probably would have helped you to do the exercise a little more easily. But first of all, a little reminder about some basic features of views. Now, we're currently showing Gantt Chart View. If you look on the View tab, the leftmost button, Gantt Chart, is highlighted. That's the one that's currently in use. Don't forget you've got those specific buttons down at the bottom right hand end of the status bar that let you switch between some of the more commonly used views. And you've also got a zoom control down there as well. Now, up on the ribbon, up on the View tab in the first two groups, one of them says Task Views and one of them says Resource Views. Now, typically, you'll use the views in those two groups for those specific purposes. So clearly, the views that you're most likely to use for tasks are in Task View, and those for resources are in Resource View. However, if you click on Other Views, you'll see a complete list of views from the More Views list just here. You'll find that as you use Project 2019, it will update some of the views that are on the drop-down menus based on your use of them. Now, at the moment, I'm looking at More Views in the Resource Views group. You can see that one of the views there is Gantt Chart. So as you can see, I can access these views from various different places. Now, the other thing to remember is that many views involve a split of the screen. In fact, some of them involve not only a vertical split like this one, but you can have a horizontal split, which we're going to look at in the next section. Now, it's pretty straightforward to move that split line to change how much information you can see on the table on the left here or in the right of the chart. So you can just drag and drag it back in again, depending on how much of each one you want to see. So that's entirely up to you, but very easy to change the way that you're viewing the Gantt chart and the task list. You can also change the width of any of the columns. So for example, if you decided that the predecessor's column here was maybe too wide, if you put the cursor to the right of the dividing line in its header and click with the mouse, when you get that double-headed arrow, you can just click and drag in, or you can drag out depending on how wide or narrow you want that column. And if I wanted, for example, to make the start date a little bit wider, I could again get that double-headed arrow, click and drag out to the right, and I've made the start date wider. So that's how you can adjust what's on the left-hand half of the view. But now let's take a look at a completely different view related to task. Let's go into Task Usage View. In Task Usage View, what you have is a list of the tasks, and for all the tasks where resources are assigned, it shows how much resource is used. Now, if you remember with the Bathroom Refit project, the first couple of phases don't have any resources in use. But as we get down into the implementation phase, we can see each task. So let's say, for example, here, task 43, gut existing bathroom, that has a contractor assigned to it. Now I'm going to make the task name column slightly wider, but what you can see here is the amount of resource that's used on a particular task. So let's take, for example, the gut existing bathroom again. Now the resource used is a contractor, and the amount of work is 8 hours. And we can see in the view on the right that where 8 hours occurs, it's on Friday, March the 29th, 2019. So here we can see where our resource is being used, but not only can we see where the resource is being used and how much of it is being used, we can also see various subtotals. So for instance, we have preparation, which is task 41. And the totals for preparation are shown here by each day. So on Friday we have 8 hours, Monday 8 hours, Tuesday 24 hours, so on and so forth. Now the 24 hours on the Tuesday is made up of 8 there, 8 there, and 8 there. So that's how we get to our 24. So you can see how the work that's being done is broken down by task and by resource. Now sometimes when you're looking at a task usage view, the amount of information can actually seem quite overwhelming. The bathroom refit is not a huge project, but already as we scroll through time and through the tasks, you can see just how much is going on and how much work is being done. This is a situation where using the outlining that I showed you earlier on in the course can be very useful. So let's go up to the data group, still staying on the View tab, and click on Outline. And let's say that we only want to see level 2. Now with level 2, we only see the level 2 tasks. However, if we look at where the work is all happening, you'll see the totals for each of those tasks. And of course, if you want to, we could go back to outlining and select level 1. And now if we go back up to the top here, you'll see the implementation phase and how much work is being done on the overall phase on each day. And also note right at the top, you can see how much work is being done overall on the project. So you can see how we can control the level of detail that we can see in Task Usage View. And if we turn our attention now to what we call the time phase data on the right, we can do quite a lot there to customize the view to our specific requirements at any time. If you look up on the View tab and in the Zoom group, you can see we have a control called Timescale, and currently days are selected. Now there's quite a few other options in that drop down, so let's take a look at weeks, for example. And there we can see on a week-by-week basis how much work is being done. So we can see our totals for each week. Now when you make a selection like that, what you finish up with quite often is pretty much a whole project squashed into a very thin amount of space, and you may want to widen things out or see a little bit more. And there are quite a few other options with Zoom that I want to take a look at next. One of the most useful ones of all is this one just here, Entire Project. Note the screen tip description. Update the view so the entire project is visible on the screen. Now that will work in any view where you've got time phase data. So it starts at the beginning of the project. In this particular project, the first 2 phases, we don't have any resources assigned, so we've got no work being done. But we do have, as we scroll across, the recorded work in the latter part. Now you also have a zoom control just here, so you can do things like zoom in or you can zoom out. Often when you do that, you might well lose sight of exactly where you are in terms of the project. You might have to use the scroll bars on the right or at the bottom in order to bring everything back into view. The other thing to notice here, and this can be a little bit unnerving at first, is that sometimes when you do a particular view, like Entire Project, what Project 2019 does is to adjust the timescale to what is sometimes a strange setting. So for instance, in doing what I've done there, the timescale is now 5 days. So it's doing it in chunks of 5 days, which is a rather strange unit of time, although of course it copes with it perfectly well. These totals of work will still be completely accurate. Now sometimes that sort of thing can be a little bit annoying. There is ultimately though a way that you can adjust timescale where you can pretty much achieve whatever effect you want to achieve. So let me show you how to do the ultimate adjustment of the view of time on the right there. If I right click over the heading One of the options there is Timescale, and that brings up the Timescale dialog box. And you can have up to 3 tiers of time, so you can see there top tier, middle tier and bottom tier. And currently in Timescale options I have show 2 tiers, so let me just change that to 3 tiers. And then I'm going to set each of those 3 tiers by selecting the appropriate tab in the dialog and then saying what I want to show in that particular tab. At the moment, don't worry too much about non-working time. We'll just concentrate on the first 3 tabs. So in the top tier, for my units, I'm going to put quarters. So I can then choose how I want those quarters labelled. And the default there is quarter 1 2009. Let's suppose instead that I want Q1 09, Q2 09, so on and so forth. And how many of them do I want at a time? Well, I'm just going to do them 1 at a time. And remember what I said just now about 3 days? Well, if you wanted it marked in 3 days or 3 quarters, you'd say 3 of them in here. You can also say how you want those markers in the header there aligned, and I'm going to stick with left aligned. And very importantly, you can also scale the view, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. So let's go to the middle tier. And for middle tier, we're going to keep it on months, and we're going to say January 09 is our label. And I'm happy for it to be left aligned, and I'm going to say I want a count of 2. And let's go to the bottom tier, and here we're going to have weeks. I'm going to change the label to this format, and we're going to have a count of 1. And I'm going to align these ones to the center. Now there's a preview down at the bottom here which gives you an idea of what the whole setup is going to look like. So let's give that a go. So you can see it's made quite a substantial change. Now that's probably overdoing it a little bit, but hopefully you get the idea from that you can modify the way that you're viewing things in that window. So just to recap, I have my timescale ordered by quarter at the top, then by month, and then by weeks. And not only can I adjust that in a very flexible way, but I can also scale it. So let's go in and scale this now. Let's suppose that I think, well, actually that's a little too wide. I need to cover a longer period. So let's right click again and bring up timescale. And I'm going to select the top tier, and currently it's at 107%. So let's go for 75% and click on OK. Now as you can see that I've made that adjustment, and that looks a little bit better. I can see a little bit more information on the screen. Now you can use that approach to presenting time-phased data on the right there, labeling, scaling, etc. Up to 3 timescales on any view that has time-phased data on the right. So we've done all of this in task usage view. Clearly you could also do exactly the same thing in Gantt chart view as well. So in the next section we're going to take a look at resource usage. I'm going to talk a little more about the answer to exercise 4, and then I'm going to show you how to split the view horizontally and how it helps you when you use Project 2019. But that's it for this section. I will see you in the next one.